Modeling ammunition in Blender is fairly straightforward. However, I would like to go into a small caveat, that being the actual tip of the round. So I've already prepared the base of the round. So we have a cylinder with some extrusions and some holding edges. And then what most people tend to do, which is a correct approach for low resolution meshes for games, or even for some renderings like this can work out, is to obviously use a cylinder and then you'll scale it up and you try to conform it to the overall shape. And then as soon as you start looking at it from some distance, like those things work well. And then for games, some people tend to just merge the top right there at the center. So all of those things tend to work, but then again, there is a better approach in Blender and for subdivision modeling as well. So anything that is meant to render offline or for high resolution renders for close-up shots. So essentially, let's start by adding a cube and hitting Control 3 to add 3 levels of subdivision. Now, what we can do in Blender is to either go into edit mode and hit Shift, Command, and S, and then we can use our mouse to drive an operation, which is called to sphere. Now, if I got the shortcut wrong, one thing you can always do in Blender is to hit F3 to bring up the global search menu, and then you can look for something called to sphere, and then you'll get the same operation, and once again you can use your mouse. So from here, what we're going to do is to delete the lower half of the vertices. Then we can bring up the model up until the very top. We can select the top vertex, hit Shift S, and then we can hit 2, which is called cursor to selected. So now we place our 3D cursor at the very top. And now one thing we can do is we can hit, I think it's the dot on the keyboard, or you can just go into the transform pivot point menu up here, select our 3D cursor as origin or as pivot for our scaling operations. And then we can use the proportional editing. The shortcut for that one is O, and by default I think it's set to smoothing. But we can adjust the fall off, and right here if we select something called root, which as you might be able to see is already very familiar to our overall shape and the fall off we intend. What we can do is firstly perhaps we can scale this one down entirely, and then we can hit scale and hit on our Z axis, and then as you can see very closely, or we start to get the desired result and the desired fall off, right? So perhaps we can scale this one up, hit O again, bring this one into alignment and position, and then let's go into isolation. Perhaps we can hit the dot again to go for median point. We can deactivate our proportional editing. We can go for simple extrusions, one down and then one or two inside, and then we can hit Control F and we can use the grid fill operation in order to fill our lower cap. And then we can add a final holding edge, so hit Control 2 or Control B to bevel with 2 segments and the profile shape set to 1, which essentially is the same thing as we would do if we were to add one edge loop on the top and one on the lower end. And then if we can, for example, hit Control 2 again and go for auto smoothing, you can see that we now have a perfect shading result. And we can check again with a matte cap using our zebra stripes. And this is as good as it gets in terms of topology and shading, and this one holds up on all resolutions. You can always increase your resolutions the closer you get, and obviously this is one of those perfect meshes to use for baking, right? So if you found any of this helpful, leave a comment down below or just leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.